conceptual dissonance in the theme. The previous two panelists sort of hinted at this possibility without actually describing it as conceptual dissonance. You assume you have a right, and for that assumption, and also because you have been indoctrinated to believe that the state owes you the maintenance, defense of those rights. Now you now think because of that, you also have a right to security and safety. And all this while, in the course of this discourse, within yourselves, you've forgotten your state of animal correctness. Your state of animal correctness is that you owe yourself the rights that the Constitution claims to codify on your behalf and to maintain for you. All this academic business, scholarly business of talking about the Constitution, that in the first place, even my Lord says they have something like this in the Constitution, and she's not too sure if the Isheshe part of the Constitution encapsulates thus far. I mean, that is an authority who refers to the Constitution in a second person reference. They. Then the professor and Commodore showed you how much insemination of dubious entries you have in the Constitution, which means this Constitution in the first place did not emanate from you. Otherwise, why is everybody introducing it to you? If it emanated from us, no one will have a field day in academies telling you about Constitution. To correct that, they also have the presence of mind, respectively, to say, okay, we need to teach this Constitution, but you can't teach a fraudulent document. It will first and foremost emanate from the people, get ratified by the people, adopted and upheld, and then you can project it to the schools in order for you to proceed. Now, concerning what we have been facing, I said you must remember and never forget, don't give up your right to animal responses. You owe yourself all of these protections that the Constitution claims to be keeping for you. Now, we say you have a contract with the state. It is called a social contract. I'm always going to refer to social contract because nobody speaks of social contract. It is a contract. So I left my animal state where I fend for myself, where might is right. I defend my family and my property because a system says, here is state. Okay, so give me part of your responsibilities to yourself so I hold it in trust for you. And so you extended that to the state. And that is the social contract. And the state said, for holding it in trust for you, you pay me tax. I will have to do this and that for you. I will provide all of this for you. And if Showore tries to mess with my phone, okay, the state will do something about that. And if I choose to take his glasses, the state will do something about that. So that was how we left that animal state of personal self-responsibility. It is divinity in human state. You owe yourself that. Okay, so if the state fails, which means the contract has been broken, it's a breach, you go back to it. So it is not illegal for you to shoot any bastard who tries to take your life. It is unknowing that people can come and be asking for permission to defend themselves. They say if they do this or that, the police, who is the police, will shoot him first. You attack my home and you ask me to call the police. No, the police would be an audience when it comes to the carnage that will take place. We will be dealing with the issue of why did you do what after, but not what I was going to do at that time. And so this is the kind of narrative that we should popularize, democratize the right to self-defense, democratize the narratology of self-help. I mean, it's there in the Constitution, and you are lawyers. Don't keep those things in their mystical state. Expose them. Let people know that they can kill whoever tries to kill them. By the time this narratology becomes very popular, the government will be scared, because they will know that you are now about to take action by yourselves. Okay, so how did we get here? So briefly, we look at the historical context of some of the crises we are looking at. They call it uncertainties. There is nothing like uncertainty in criminality. It is usually contemplated there is a political economy to crime. And so you have a situation where, for instance, the last 4 generations of arms and ammunition manufactured across the world have become outdated. You have AI, permeating the process of productions. So you have a large cache of arms that are no longer like state of the art, but lots of warehouses are filled up with ammunitions that have been manufactured in the last 30 years. Somebody's losing money as a result of that. So a market has to be created. You have to incentivize and stimulate crime, criminality, and war in order for those things to be solved. There is no uncertainty to it. There is a certainty to the process. It's a dialectical process. You need a market, and that market is criminality, crime, and war. And so those arms must be pushed out. So some people are somewhere making trillions and incentivizing the process that is keeping you awake at night. So there is definitely no uncertainty. The certainty also is, in a country like Nigeria, 9 out of 10 citizens work in the informal sector. 9 out of 10 work in the informal sector, which simply means all this shenanigan you call state's infrastructure and superstructure is only being enjoyed by 10% of the population. That the entire system of your being a country is designed for an elitist process of just amassing and tooling your own convenience for 10 persons. I mean 10%. That is unacceptable. So you have 90% in the informal sector. Informal sector simply means they don't have access to medical health facilities. They don't have access to insurance. They don't have access to so many things. And yet they are taxed senseless. And so which means the state is in a criminal state, actually not doing much for 90%, but expropriating them in order to feather the nest of 10%. So you have that insecurity emanating from dissent. You have lots of people who can afford to go to school. And so you have the alimentary practice that was talked about here being a continuation in a contemporary sense of what started in the period of the Nilotic tribe and their migrations. So if you look at the geopolitics of the Fulani menace, it is not something that happened recently. It is not something that you could ascribe, to 10 years of Boko Haram insurgency. It is something that has lasted close to 300 years or more. When you had the days of the empire, the Fulani was very important. It's good now people are angry, you can denigrate on Fulani. But we do know from historical search and research that long before some of the most erudite Yoruba or Igbo people ever could read or write, the Fulani had written. Long before, in fact, 100 years ahead of literacy. Because see, literacy is not whether you can read or speak English, it is that you can read or speak or write. And so if you write Arabic, Hebrew, or anything, you are literate. So these people documented even the geography of West Africa long before we produced the first contemporary scholar. But how did they become a people that are holding the bottle of humanity in terms of civility today? Because they became entrapped in a culture that was not going to yield to change or evolution. So when the empire states changed and you now had nation states, modern states, they continue with nomadism. And for moving from place to place, they lost all the benefit of sedentary, civilizational development. So no land, no construction of livable space and all that. And they became the floating population. So if you say that they were not Nigerians, they were never from anywhere because they were always on the highways. Now they are caught up in the reality that everybody is rooted to the ground. And so there is a need to root them to the ground. If you do not articulate this historical context to the crisis, you would only keep venting, negatively without actually showing some humanity to their own issue. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be a war if nothing is done clearly. And then after that war, we will do what foolish people do. We will fight in order to talk, rather than talk in order to avoid the fight. Okay, so after the war, we still get back to the table. We will deal with these issues of geopolitics, the historical context of everything, and we begin to realize that it would have been nice if from the beginning we familiarized ourselves with so many of these issues so that we can show some empathy even to those who have no empathy for us. Like the Fulani, I do not believe that we can hold any discourse in utter pain and negativity and all that. No, they have actually constructed a very bad discourse with us, but we should also see what is fueling that. And if a man cannot understand his position and you can understand his position better than him, why don't you loan him some wisdom? So if we should look into this matter in the context of its historical significance, we will see that one way or the other, the entire continent is culpable here. ECOWAS is not doing anything about the floating population that became handy in Libya, and they were thoroughly armed. And then those who are applauding Trump, they forget also that whatever is circulating, you have Trevor. Trevor is over 50 times, due respect to military expert, 50 times superior to AK-47. And the Fulani bandits are handling Trevors. Trevor is produced in Israel. The so-called Fulani bandit is so-called a jihadist. Naturally, he's supposed to be wired against the Jew. The Jew is not interested whether you're wired. So far, you have the funds, and you are serving his purpose. His Trevor is in the hands of the Fulani. One Trevor here will route the entire Ikeja very nicely because truly, you can't stand it. And so these are the issues, the subtext of the issues we are dealing with. So if Trump is coming to do anything by that shenanigan and grandstanding, why is nobody asking? Can you first, before you come, withdraw all and shut all apertures, all channels by which your product find their ways into the desert? Tomahawk planes land in the desert, in the forest, and discharge large cache of sophisticated arms. Tomahawk is American aircraft. It's a cargo aircraft. And they are supplying food, medical supplies, and expertise and training to people in the desert. And yet, we are localizing the discourse. And we are applauding America. That is actually the first power that can decapitate the so-called the head of that hydra, simply by just blocking the channels. Leave the equipment with them, but they will run out of ammo anyway. And that's it. You will see them coming out with empty guns and telling you they have surrendered. Now, why is it that
Dr. Ezebiro, please?
Yeah, policies.
Thank you.
I am putting fire to the
I understand that, but
to the sticks that they all put together here, so the flame can come on. But I definitely respect that time. Okay, so the issue is, if we're not going to sit here every year and talk like this and go home, and it turns out to be an exercise in intellectual masturbation, then let's make it yield something. Let's have a situation where the discourse results into actionable plans, and the state can see that the masses generally have understood the concept of social contract. And the masses are blaming the state, saying, you have breached the contract. And so we do not owe you. Look, if we all agree that we won't pay tax and that the FIRS can come after all of us, how many are there? How many of us? I mean, it won't work. If you could raise that kind of awareness, government will behave.